Hi everyone, how are you? Welcome to our fourth week of content. This week we're diving into team communication and how teams communicate and collaborate together and how that affects their performance. So this week, I'm taking a new approach on the assignment. I'm really super excited about it. We've spent a lot of time just reflecting on other ideas and I think that's important when you start out any new content areas to read, get some legs in terms of what's out there, what theories exist, what foundation kind of supports this broad area. So the beginning part is just sort of absorbing as like a sponge all the information that exists that others have put out there. But as you progress, both in this class and also in the program, the goal is to move away from just taking others' ideas as fact and implementing your own ideas and having your own questions and learning how to assess and study and test those questions. So this week, your goal is to read the assigned articles. I put a couple extra. You don't have to read them word for word, right? Sometimes learning to be an academic is getting very good at skimming and high level understanding the gist and findings of something without reading every single word. So I do give you permission to skim a little bit. But the goal is to read those articles and to understand their takeaways and then to ask yourself, what else do I want to know? What is missing here? What factors are not being taken into account? Or based on your own experiences, what would you like to know that the research articles aren't really addressing? So I want you to develop your own research question. What would you want to know? What is a burning curiosity you have? And then create your own method to assess or test that question. So how would you design a study? And, just for fun and intellectual curiosity's sake, we'll assume there's no limits, right, on resources or time limits. So if you could really think big, what would an ideal study look like that would allow you to assess your research question? And so that is really the goal this week, is to generate some ideas among our classmates of new ideas for future research that get us excited and to come up with some fun ways of really digging into what we would want to know and how we would go about assessing that. And this is going to be a valuable skill as you think about your own dissertations and having research questions. One skill is not just coming up with a question, but how are you going to test that question, in what context? And all research studies involve making decisions, and there are trade-offs for those decisions. So what are some of the trade-offs you're making, and what are some of the limitations? For example, I'm working with one of my students right now, and we're talking about different data collection methods. And one way might be to use prolific or mTurk, and that is a trade-off. It's very easy to get a sample very quickly, so that is a benefit. But there's some trade-offs in terms of the validity of the sample you're using, of the context, particularly in our realm of individuals with mental illness. Sometimes there might be questions about, well, are you really tapping the people you think you're tapping, versus say, I'm going to collect a sample of people from I'm going to go to clinics, I'm going to go to support groups, I'm going to tap people that I know are specifically engaging with the mental health system, and that will be my sample. So there are trade-offs in the studies we use. Will you use a student sample? Easy to access, particularly with teams, easy to kind of create a simulation team environment. But maybe that the simulation is not high stakes, and that can have an impact on their performance. Maybe there's nothing really to be personally gained for those students who are involved in the group, so they don't care one way or the other if the team performs or does not perform. So we need to think about what the parameters would be and what choices we're making and what the consequences are. So all studies will have limitations. That's normal, but we need to be able to know what they are and to think about them in advance so that we can put other things in place to hopefully compensate for some of those limitations, or we directly call it out and say, hey, this is a limitation, but something that could be explored in future research for someone else to kind of figure out. But in the meantime, here's what we're contributing. So this week, I hope you have fun. I hope it kind of break free a little bit of trying to think about what the literature is telling you, and breaking free a little bit of trying to find one right answer, and instead just say, wow, given unlimited resources and just opportunity to ideate, what would I come up with? Beyond that, some of you are doing an exceptional job engaging in this research journal. You're journaling some great ideas. You're, using it in the way that I've intended, but there are some students who are still not journaling, and it's we're over halfway, or we're halfway in the class now. It's going to start having an impact that you've not been really spending time engaging with the content in this way. So if you have not yet sought out the journal assignment, this is sort of a last and final call to say now is the time to get involved in that, to be able to show any level of like consistent participation throughout the semester. By next week, I think we're technically in week 6, and next week, then, 2/3 of the semester are gone. So this is really your chance to show that you've been engaging in these thoughtful, reflective activities throughout the course of the semester, in ways that aren't necessarily showing up on the discussion board. So if you have any questions about that, please let me know. Also, a reminder about our end of the semester executive summary assignment. If any of you want to meet to bounce ideas, if you have questions about how to structure things, what the format should look like, how do you synthesize information, let me know. I'm happy to meet with you and discuss your ideas and just be somebody that will listen to what you want to talk about, answer any questions you might have. But I think now would be a good time, if you have not yet started that assignment, to just give yourself a nudge to start looking up articles, right? To identify some sources. And by breaking it up, it might help you a little bit. So make sure you have a research question. Then you find your sources. Then you start kind of putting them together and chunking them and looking for some kind of thematic patterns. And then from there, you can do the write-up. So I wouldn't recommend sitting down and trying to do it all in one day. Because I think the product will be better when you spend, more time ideating, working through, questioning, the themes you've analyzed and drawn out, etc. So hope you are doing well. Lastly, I guess I'll say that I have been grading your assignments, so you should see my feedback is on the assignments. If you haven't yet checked the discussion board, I haven't graded the things you submitted on Sunday 2 days ago, but if you are interested, you can go back and see the feedback I've left. And if you have any questions about that, let me know. I'm happy to have some dialogue. So, hope this week is kind to you. I hope you're productive and you're taking care of yourselves, and looking forward to seeing what amazing ideas you all come up with. Okay, take care. Bye.